Okay. Okay, it works now. So I'm here as a president of the Pistoia Nursery District that you know is the biggest nursery district in Europe, and as a university professor at the University of Florence where I teach and do research about arboriculture and urban forestry. Just a few words about the importance of, in the present scenario, social, environmental, and climate scenario of the plant nursery districts everywhere in the world, not just in Europe and in Italy. A few words about if you're not familiar with the district of Pistoia, the district of Pistoia is about 5,000 hectares for the whole surface. 3,500 hectares are dedicated to nursery growing. We have different districts all over Italy, mainly in the center-north part of Italy, but also in the south. As I said, the total nursery area is now about 3,500 hectares. We have 1,300 enterprises and about 6,000 direct workers in the nursery industry, and about 10,000 considering all the activities that are related to the nursery industry in Pistoia. And the gross production is about 0.5 billion euro just in Pistoia. What's the present scenario? There is a growing demand for plants. Even this morning I had 2 phone calls from some municipalities in the north of Italy that were looking for plants, and unfortunately the offer of plants is limited now. Limited because it takes time to grow trees and shrubs, and also because most of the production was already sold last fall. On the other part, there is an environmental pressure about using natural resources. So we are doing something, and I will show you what, about reducing the input, especially of natural resources. There is an increase in production costs, especially after the COVID-19, and we have also a problem of management of green waste, and we are transforming this problem in a resource, and I will show you how. So we have some projects running, and we want to become climate neutral. We are working on circular economy. We are working also on improving the logistics, which is a problem in Pistoia because of the narrow roads and all the trucks that are going back and forth from the nursery all over the year. We are looking for resilient species and cultivar, and at the very end, in the last 2 to 3 years, we are working on the introduction of new technology, especially the artificial intelligence. Just a few words about the project. The first one is already running. It's about recycling all the plastic that is used in the nursery industry. So pots, pipes, and whatever. We are collecting all the waste, the plastic waste, in one location where it's recycled. They produce a small polymer, which is the gray one you see on the right of the picture. And with this polymer, we produce again pots for the container cultivation, pots which are recycled and recyclable. So it's the circular economy in the same region, because the facility to recycle the pots is very close to the area. And the project is called Revive Pot, which means bringing new life to pots. The second one is a project funded by European Union. The project is named Pitless. It just started last fall. The aim is to reduce the use of peat. Peat is a natural resource which is under threat, and so we are trying to reduce as much as we can the use of peat in the nursery. So we are trying to introduce different kind of composts to reduce the use of peat and to put this into a circular economy and maintaining the quality of the product. Another project that we have is to build, and the building is now on construction, a self-control laboratory for disease control. We have a regional and a national phytosanitary control, but it's not enough. We want to have our own control, which will work together with the national regional system to ensure the quality, phytosanitary quality of the products which will be exported and imported from other countries. The fourth, but it's not the least important, is the introduction of artificial intelligence in the nursery management, especially for reducing water consumption, reducing herbicides use, and reducing also pesticide use in the nursery, and also controlling all the changes in the climate event that can bring also changes in the cultivation, in the plant growth. And which are the future trends in high-tech nursery production? We want to go fossil-free, which means to save energy, which means also to save energy sources. We want to be emission-free. I mean, the nursery industry is already carbon negative. We want to become very carbon negative in the next future. It means to save water. It also means to reduce the loss of nutrients, and then pesticide-free. There are already some nurseries in Pistoia area where they don't use any pesticide, including herbicide. What is the present situation outside of the nursery gate? You know, there are so many tree planting programs all over the world. Millions of trees, billions of trees, trillions of trees. But nobody said where these trees can be found, can be found. Because nurseries, unfortunately, were not and still are not involved in this huge planting and design process. So we design something new and we don't know where to find the trees, where to find the shrubs, where to find the forbs and, the perennial herbs. And I think, not because I'm working with the nursery industry, but because I'm a university professor, I'm doing research on that nurseries are the engine, are the future food for the planning and design process. So first, we should start from the nursery. And Pistoia's Plans for Change, this is the title of the one project, Local Roots for a Global Challenge. Because, in my opinion, nurseries don't just sell plants. They sell solutions to the problems of the future. And also, the nursery are the response to the climate crisis. And also, everywhere, not just in Pistoia, we're not growing trees. We are growing the future living infrastructure that will allow to build the world where we can breathe normally. And the problem is that whether it's material for reforestation or for big trees transplanting, the urban forest must begin in the nursery. There is no choice. You cannot find the trees anywhere, but just in the nursery. And the problem is that for nurserymen, the information is limited because nurserymen don't know what to produce sometimes, how much or how many, depends, to produce. For who? Where? Because, for example, in Italy, there are different areas. In Europe, there are even areas where you can grow trees and shrubs, what techniques or technology can be used, and eventually when. For tomorrow, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, we don't know. We don't have a real, planning or about how many plants we will need in the next future. Everybody's talking about planting trees, but nobody's talking about nurseries. So my opinion is that we must have a different view. The nursery must be central and involved in the future project from the beginning. We cannot start anything without the first material, which are the plants. And so we have to put nursery at the core of this future. And we know that there are so many professionals involved. These are some, probably not all the professionals which are involved in the planning, planting, and managing urban green areas in our cities. Some of these professionals are probably in this room. I'm one of those, probably a couple of those, because I'm both a researcher and a practical person. And what we need to transmit, convey to the people is that to produce plants, especially trees, needs time, needs year. So tomorrow we cannot have what we want to have today or tomorrow. Probably we will have it in 2 years, maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years. It depends on how big your trees or your plants are. And so we need to put at the very beginning some strategic choices, some tactical choices, some operational choices, and some emergency choices. Because sometimes there is something that can happen that is unpredictable today. So we need to do instant and precise choices. They're called emergency choices. Unfortunately, most of our work is on emergency choices and operational choices. We're not involved in the strategic choices and in tactical choices that can really help us to produce good plants, to produce plants in the number that will be needed in the future. And my second job is a university professor and a researcher. I'm coordinating a group of people who are working on research in the nursery industry and in the urban environment. What we would like to do is to reinventing urban nature. Unfortunately for this, we need to change our approach. I have seen yesterday and this morning some good example here in Paris about reinventing urban nature. In Italy, it's not so easy to find some good example. Sometimes we repave a square and then we decide to put some trees here and there, but the square is already paved. All the substrate was already made mainly of rubble and concrete and whatever. So we need to start also in this case from the very beginning to think about regenerating places starting from the plants, not starting from the concrete. And so we'll have to face a different future because this is Paris today and this is made by artificial intelligence. This could be, I hope it won't be, Paris in 2070 with the climate change. And so we need to adapt to the new climate, to the future climate, because otherwise we will decline. Our trees, our plants will decline. Also because, people are moving from the rural areas to the city, and we cannot stop this movement. You are aware that in 2050, 70%, 68, probably more than that, of the total world population will live in urban environment. It means that 3/4 of the entire world population will live in the city. So we have to build the city for the people who will live in. And we have to set in the scene why we should reinvent urban nature, as I chose the title, because we know what are the potential benefits of the trees, but we don't know what will be the real benefits in an environment which is so unfamiliar, which is so hostile to trees. And so the key idea is to put the science of tree choice at the very first in every project. How do we currently select trees? Sometimes at the very end of the project we decide what should I plant, because nobody think about planting trees, which species to be planted at the very beginning of the project. Rarely. This is research done by a very prominent colleague in UK. You see that about 50% almost of the people rely on nursery catalogs. That's why it's so important to be nurserymen, because we can decide what to plant in the future. We shouldn't wait for others to tell us what to plant and what to grow. So still, based on this opinion, which was done actually in the UK, tree nursery catalogs are, dominating species selection across major professional groups. And so this is mainly intuition. So we need to move from intuition to data-driven species selection, a selection which relies on the research, on the practical application of some species. And the key idea is to look to functional traits of the plants, like drought tolerance, like phenology, rooting patterns, and canopy structure. And also to know the role of provenance and also the intraspecific variation inside the species. I mean, cultivar varieties, seed sources, and so on. And these are some of the research we are doing inside the National Recovery and Resilience Plans of Italy. We have done. I was responsible for my university of the urban biodiversity group, so we have done research all over Italy. These are some of the universities which were involved, some of the places which were involved in planting trees, looking at the biodiversity. And why biodiversity is so important? I will talk more about biodiversity, but just for now, you know that biodiversity increases urban forest resiliency. This is a practical example. If you have just one species and a new disease comes, you will lose all the trees, almost all the trees. If you have more than one species, you will be losing some trees, but most of them will remain, and they will replace the trees that died. And we're facing this problem now in Italy, but also in Europe. Thinking about also in the past, the Dutch elm disease, the stain canker in plane trees, the Hymenoscyphus fraxineus in ash, and so on. And so we have to think about biodiversity, not just a word that is named, in every single speech about environment. Biodiversity is something different. It's a resource that we have to maintain, improve, and increase in the next future. And we should think that biodiversity in the urban environment, if we speak about the number of species, is higher than in the open lands. Because if you go in a forest in Europe, you will find a very limited number of species. But if you go around here in Paris, you will find, hundreds of species. So in terms of number of species, biodiversity in the city is very important. And the city will be the place where some species will be preserved because they will be protected, or at least I hope they will. And it's also important not because, as I said before, and I repeat, the number of species that you can plant, because biodiversity affects also some climate parameters like temperature. You see this, the temperature of the city. The city is characterized by the urban heat island. A research which was done a few years ago showed that planting trees, which is, a very good thing, can decrease the city temperature 0.7 degrees on the annual basis. If you plant trees and shrubs, the reduction is 0.9, which is, strong reduction. But if you are able to reproduce, like in Place de la Catalogne, here, close to here, a secondary forest with trees, smaller trees, shrubs, and the understory vegetation, the effect is 1.7, which is almost 3 times as much compared to just planting trees. That's why biodiversity is so important. And you see the correlation between, the days with temperature above 32 degrees and the Shannon index, which is the most common index used to measure biodiversity. You see that with the increasing of the Shannon index, meaning with the increase of biodiversity, the temperature of the air decreases steadily. It's a very direct correlation. This is a work which was published a few years ago on urban forest and urban greening. But also the biodiversity of shapes is important. Biodiversity of the functional traits, biodiversity of leaves, biodiversity of canopy shape, biodiversity of the green spaces. So a regular green space has a lower effect compared to an irregular green space. And so for the future green planning, the mantra will be to avoid what we cannot manage and to manage what we have, because we cannot cut trees because it's difficult to manage them. So in terms of urban planting, it means taking care of what we have and planning for a more resilient canopy that will endure in the future. And so the other goal is to connect science with urban form and human experience. So we have to rethink the spatial design, to think about trees as infrastructures, and also we have to leave behind, think about our mental ideas that trees are just a decoration in the city, because trees has multifunction roles. They can provide shade. They can manage stormwater runoff. They improve biodiversity, not just because they are present, but because the biodiversity in the tree is a small world. It can contain insects, birds, small mammals, fungi, all kinds of microorganisms, and so on, and to improve also well-being of the population. And so what are the key ideas and the key performance indicators which are needed to know if your project will be successful or not? Canopy cover percentage, it's important, but it's not enough. Green infrastructure performance for water management, the biodiversity index, any kind of index. We are now trying to develop a potential urban index for green areas at my university, the air quality improvement, and also the social KPIs performance, social key performance indicator about user satisfaction, because what we need is an equity to the access of green areas. One of the problems of these big projects, like for example the High Line, is the gentrification, which is these projects, which are very nice, beautiful. I mean, you will stay with your mouth open when you see this very nice project, but these projects also bring gentrification. It means they didn't bring social equity and also environmental equity. And we need more community engagement. So coming to the real core of the presentation, what we should do to choose trees in a warming world. In drier climates, obviously this is not France, even not Italy, because we are having a lot of rain in the last 2 months, so probably the rainiest months in the last 20 years. We have to face some challenges, but also we have to think about some trade-off. It's not just for free. We have something to do to give back to this. Which are the trade-offs? While tree planting reduces urban heat, it increases irrigation needs. Improving soil quality, it's necessary. We cannot plant in the concrete like we have done in the last 20 years, especially in my country. There is a need of selecting drought-tolerant species. Here comes the trade-off between native and exotic. I will speak about later. And then we have to balance the tree canopy extension with the sustainable water used to irrigate our green spaces. So for example, to use recycled water, and there is a big project I haven't talked about at the very beginning, to bring all the recycled water which is produced in Florence to Pistoia to be used in the nursery. And so we have different approach. Breeding for environmental tolerance, but this needs several years to become really effective. Selecting species which are already present for tolerance, any kind of tolerance, heat, drought, and also parasite resistance. And then cloning observed tolerant plants. Again, we need time to do this. We need time, we need money, we need funds. But if we are aware that nurseries are so strategic for the future of the cities, we have to fund research and experimentation in this field. Also because drought is not a simple stress, it's a multiple stress. Especially in the Mediterranean countries, it means high temperature, lack of water, and also high irradiance, which are, 3 factors of stress for the plants. So the research must be directed to predict the effect of climate change, I would say global change, in time and money, is time, and money consuming. In the present scenario, we most rely on the prediction model which were made by research. Drought stress can be short or prolonged with different effects, and so the question is how we can improve drought tolerance already in the nursery. We had done some research in the past, and we are doing also research now about the species selection, nursery preconditioning, and planting and management. We have done research in containers, and then we planted these trees in the open environment to see which were the effect, for example, of deficit irrigation to reduce the amount of water while maintaining growth performance of the trees. What we have seen is something interesting because some species they grow like fully irrigated in the nursery, and they didn't show any difference once in the open ground. Some others grew less in the nursery, which is that is not good for nurserymen. They don't want to have their plants smaller because of the lack of water. But then, when they were planted, especially maple and tilia, when they were planted in the open ground, they performed much better compared to the trees which were fully irrigated in the nursery. So we have to do research and to know which are the species that cannot be grown with limited amount of water, and the other that can grow with the limited amount of water without any effect once planted in the open ground. And then species selection. Also in this case, we have some questions to be answered. The first one is what are the key challenges and limitations of implementing urban afforestation, and how can urban afforestation in arid region can contribute to climate resilience and to mitigation of urban heat island and also to pollution reduction. You see, you can plant anywhere. This picture was taken 3 years ago, yes, 4 years ago. Actually, it was December, so 3 years ago, in the Emirates, up in the mountains, and you see it's full of trees. They just use water. In that case, you cannot do without water. But if you select the right species, you can even grow trees at 50 degrees centigrade during most of the year. And arboriculture is changing. Species choice in the past was about 10 genera and maybe 30 to 40 species. Now we have, I think, more than 700 species and cultivars which have been tested for planting in the urban environment. The main problem is that it's rare to follow this rule. It's very simple. It was made by Louis Sullivan, who was a famous architect of the School of Chicago. He said, very simply, form ever follows function. Because, you need to know the tree species or the shrubs that you are going to use. Because sometimes people think about the height. So for them, a tree which is 20 meters tall is a huge tree. But an Italian cypress can be 25 meters tall and be very narrow. While, a robinia, a mulberry, and even an Acer platanoides globosum are very short, but they're very large. So they occupy much more spaces than a cypress, which is 20 meters tall. And also we must know the place where we will plant them. Because, sometimes we plant a 20 meters and very large canopy trees in a very small, planting hole. It's like to bring, a glass of French white, red wine in a very small dish. You need a big dish to be sure that you are not falling together with the glass where you bring the glass to your host. And another thing that we have to consider that we don't have a one-size-fits-all solution. In arboriculture and urban forestry, any single place is different. Sometimes, even from one side to the other, we are doing research, we are seeing a lot of difference between one side of the road and the other side of the road in Florence. So maybe we should think about using different species. It's hard to comprehend for us because we are, even in Paris, avenue of just plain trees, avenue of just, linden trees. Probably we should think about changing species sometimes from one side to the other to have a regular growth on both sides of the streets. And so we need to have solution tailor-made. We need to be like tailors when we choose trees for the urban environment. Cars. What these two cars do have in common? Color. Then The country, right. Actually, it's the European Stellantis, you know, the same brand. Country, same brand, Stellantis, you know. Then they have four-wheel. They have two rear light and two front light. A lot of things in common. But if you have the money, probably you will choose Ferrari instead of Panda, you know? But it depends. If you have to go here, probably Ferrari is the best choice for you. But if you have to go here, probably Ferrari is not the best choice, you know, because it will stop after a few meters, while the red Panda will go anywhere. You know, it's like a four-wheel drive. It can go Panda in Italy for hunters, for, you know, it's the best car ever because it can grow. It can it can go anywhere, you know, any place with any kind of weather. Ferrari, you can drive Ferrari only, you know, on a very large track, very, you know, smooth track and so on. And that's why it's important to have biodiversity. I said before, it's not a trendy word. It's something that we have to protect, to maintain, and to increase in the city of the future. So which are the trees most widely grown in our cities? This is a list, okay, of the most common tree species grown in European countries, you know, from Italy, Spain, up to Denmark, and also the Scandinavian countries. Which will be the trees suitable for a dry climate in the future? I prepared a list which is not, you know, exhaustive. It's just my list based on my personal experience. These are some of the species with, you know, the drought tolerance, the growth rate, the maintenance needs, the shade potential, the climate change resilience, the root aggressiveness, and the biodiversity value, and also some notes that I brought based on my experience. You know, probably you will find some mistakes because I based this table on my own experience, which is mainly Italian. These are the other from M to Z. You know that I have a couple of minutes to tell you a story. 30 years ago, I was in United States, and they showed some tree inventories in the upper state New York and, you know, the northeast of the United States. Norway maple, Acer platanoides, it's in United States is considered a weed, invasive. So its plantation is now forbidden or very limited. And in the tree inventories of different cities in the northeast part of the United States, Norway maple, Acer platanoides, was the species which was most largely widely cultivated. 37% in one city, 37% of the trees in the city were Acer platanoides. But the genus Acer accounted for more than 60% of the whole trees in 5 different cities. And they asked me, why is that? I didn't know. I tried to provide different answer. And the answer was that Acer platanoides is the first big trees in the nursery catalog. That's how they chose in the 50s and the 60s, after Dutch elm disease, the species to be planted. They need to plant trees, and the species that was growing fast, was readily available, was nice, nice full color and whatever, was Acer platanoides. So nobody at that time planted Zelkova because it was the last in the list, you know. And this is a very nice research done by the same person I cited before. They tried to apply the climate suitability evaluation method in London. So they studied the species distribution modeling, the plant trace analysis, and then the final score. And it came out that only 0.38%, not 38, 0.38% of London trees are highly suitable for the next future. 22% of trees are moderately suitable. 62% of trees are low suitable, and 5.4 are species which will be very vulnerable in the future. So London is facing something that can be really, really dangerous in the future. And so they suggested some species to be planted. As you can see, they're typical Mediterranean species. Strawberry tree, Arbutus unedo, black hornbeam, no, what is the name in English of the Austria carpenifolia? Black alder. Some Mediterranean maples, Gleditsia, Taxodium, European hackberry, and then rowan. And so, coming to close to the end, a tree species in the urban environment, a resilient selection must be based for someone, even for me, up to a few years ago, on trying to find some species that are growing in climate analogous to the climate which we'll have in the next future. So this was a few years ago, the main, thinking about selecting new species. So looking at the future climate analogous for Italy, you see these are in red, these are the areas that now have the climate which will be foreseen in Italy between 2050 and 2070. So Rome will have, the climate of GL in Algeria, completely different, very dry and hot compared to what is now. So the thinking a few years ago was to try to find some species which are thriving in climate which will be very similar, which are very similar to the climate that we will have in the next future. Is this enough? No, it is not, because it depends on where you can find these species. You see, along this slope, another very bright researcher from Europe, from Sweden in this case, went to China, and he saw that along a slope in the mountains of China, the vegetation changes completely. And just one species was very common, was Quercus aliena, which was present down in the valley and up in the higher elevation. But also the vegetation can change according to the exposition. You see how, for example, also in the other exposition, Quercus aliena was present. It means that it is a species which is quite resilient, probably very tolerant to any kind of habitat. So in the future, we have a lot of Carpinus betulus. We have probably have to change to Austria carpinifolia. We are now growing Acer campestre, which is showing, which is unbelievable. In the last 2 years, it has suffered for a heat wave, especially in center-south of Italy. So probably we should shift to Acer monspessulanum, which comes from the deep south of Italy. The London plane tree, Platanus X acerifolia, is having a lot of problems, not just phytosanitary problems. It loses 50% of the leaves in July sometimes, even this year. So it means that its benefits are reduced by 50% in the middle of the season. We need trees that will provide benefits for the whole growing season. So probably Platanus mexicana can be an option. Bringing some trees from Mexico, from south of the United States, and try how they work here in Europe. Quercus fellows, it failed. We have planted several Quercus fellows in Florence, they all failed. problem of soil pH, problem of water needs, problem of high irradiance. So Nyssa is probably another option. Very nice fall color, but it's very drought tolerant. And then coming back to one of my first slides, we have to avoid the unmanageable and to manage the unavoidable. London plane trees. Will we be able to deal with all the diseases and all the problems that London plane trees is having right now in Europe? If we think we will not be able to do that, probably we need to change the species. Horse chestnut, Guignardia, Cameraria, water stress and so on, probably will need to change species. Maybe Aesculus glabra, maybe Aesculus indica, which are more drought tolerant and also they bring the same aesthetic value. Elm. Dutch elm disease is a problem, everywhere, but also we have a problem with Gallerusella, especially in a season like the past one with a lot of rain. Also in summer, most of the trees were like that, almost defoliated by Gallerusella. And then the Italian stone pine. That beside showing problem of tree stability, we have the problem of Tomeiella parvicormis, which is the scale that are killing, that is killing all the trees in the center-south of Italy. And then we have to avoid species that will conflict with the infrastructure. This is a picture I took in Rome in 2015. It's privet, Japanese privet. This was in 2019, and this was a few months ago. You see, what changed is just the tree that has eaten, coming back, the irrigation drainage pipe. That's the only change, because the pavement is almost destroyed. Because people think that the root system of the tree in the urban environment is like that or like that, but it's like this, It must extend horizontally to find soil to be used for water and nutrients. And so at the end, it's not an easy choice to anybody have the solution, has the solution. But actually, tree species choice, it's very difficult, because if you do a mistake, it will last for 30, 40, maybe 50 years. And so this is the selection funnel. You start, from the upper part with a lot of species that can be suitable for the region where you're going to plant trees. Then you go down to trees that are suitable, but they're not facing, any kind of disease for pests or pathogen. Then down to trees that are suitable for the region. They don't face any serious problem, and they can cope with the, challenging urban stand. And then you go down up to selection of genotypes with the species that can thrive in the predicted future climate. If you put a list, the list is getting narrower, narrower, and narrower. And at the very end, there is a question mark. And that question mark is not easy to be substituted by a good answer. And then the last 3 slides, only trees or shrubs too. We are going to publish a paper. You see it has been sent to an international journal about the effect of shrubs to improve the urban condition. What we have seen that even if they are much smaller compared to trees, they can provide a real, benefit to the city, because they can cover most of the surface, and also they can intercept pollutants at the height of our nose and mouth. Because if you have trees that are, 5 meters, 6 meters of trunk, all the pollution from cars is not intercepted by the leaves of the trees, while the shrubs do work all along the season. And so they are very important. So the conclusion, key messages, urban greenery is an ally for urban resilience. It's not an ally. It's a main component of the urban resilience. We need to have an interdisciplinary approach. I'm an arborist by study and by work, but I work with landscape architects, with landscape planners, with social scientists, with medical scientists. I teach at the landscape architecture degree and planning degree in Florence, and I also cooperated with some medical doctors in Florence to do research about this. And at the very end, there is a big dispute among people. Most of the people who don't know anything about arboriculture and urban forestry, they pretend to be right, and they say only native species should be used. But you know that, especially Italy, it's funded on exotic species. Italian stone pine, olive, cypress are not native, really native from Italy. And so we are, my landscape, I live just outside of Florence, is made of olive trees, pine, and cypress, which are not native of Italy. And then there is someone in the middle that say the use of non-native species can be appropriate and in some context even necessary. And then the real answer that the issue is not whether species are native or not native, but whether they are, ecologically appropriate. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, professeur.